Welcome to That Digital Take. I'm your host, Tori Webster. Okay, everybody, we have a really exciting guest today. Welcome back to That Digital Take. So excited. I have a dear friend, but also an industry maven, an industry OG here with me, Mel Hwang. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Wow.
Happy to be here.
I am so excited to kind of do this more formal chat with you because we've chatted industry behind the scenes
all the time
for years. Like it feels like a decade. I mean, let's go backwards. So how did you get started in the industry? How long have you been in the industry? Because for my version of the Canadian influencer industry, you've been there every step of the way. You're my like shining star of
oh my gosh,
OG.
not me not being able to fit out the door because my ego's been so inflated. Well, first of all, I've known Tori since she was literally a baby.
Yeah, baby.
But I started actually like when I was 14, as you know. For me, it was kind of like a way to make friends. It certainly wasn't cool at the time. Definitely not a job. I just like had this in my mind that I would become Carrie Bradshaw and like have this website and then get moved to New York and then work for Vogue, I think is what was in my mind. But really the root of it was I just wanted to create a community of friends because I just didn't have a lot growing up. And eventually one thing led to another. I started sharing from fashion to just life, and then social media happened, and it kind of just translated into the various different platforms. And then the hobby became a job like 10 years ago, and it's been the full-time gig for the last 7 years.
That is incredible, and also shows the longevity that does exist in this industry, because that's something I chat about a lot on the podcast. Is there's kind of always been this perception of, oh, this industry is going to implode. You don't have longevity in this industry. You don't have consistency in this industry. And I think, I mean, you and I are both examples of this, but like I think you especially, you've pivoted with so much of how this industry has changed. Like you said, you started in the blogger era, which the blogger era in Canada was such an interesting time. Like, do you know what I mean? Though it really was the blogger. Time. Everyone was paying like, and at the time they were expensive, because I remember getting quoting out when I first started on Instagram, all of the influencers, you included in this, in Canada already had blogs.
Yeah.
And I remember getting sat down by my agencies at the time, and they were like, oh, Tori, you've got to buy a blog. And I sat with this guy and he's like, Tori, it's going to be $10,000.
Oh my gosh, are you nuts?
No, and I was in first year university, and I was like, I'm really sorry. Like, I'm not about to drop 10 G's on a literal website. I just like, I didn't know. So yeah. So what was your experience with the blog? You're fully out of the blog circuit now. Like you don't write anymore, but like, what was that? Yeah. What was that like? The transition to like Instagram, TikTok, and like from the blog?
I was like super nerdy growing up.
Okay.
So I first started on like platforms like Pixo, and then eventually like MySpace kind of came around, played with that for a bit, but then in school took a computer science class and was like, ooh, Dreamweaver, which is the like old school Adobe platform for building websites essentially. And then I got really into it, started to learn a bit of HTML, those like fluorescent pink and black. I don't know, you may be too young for this.
I was going to say, this is kind of going over my head, but I appreciate the insight.
let me educate you, youngin. Anyways, so when WordPress came around, it was like kind of my foray into building websites on my own and in that time and space of like cool websites. But transitioning to like the social platforms wasn't as difficult because first was Twitter, and I was so used to writing copy. So it wasn't too difficult. I just had to be more concise. And then when Instagram and visual style platforms kind of popped up, I was already taking photos for my blog. So it was a little bit more of like omission of copy or omission of content.
True.
Rather than like adding new things.
Shorter form. Yeah.
Exactly. It's only when video came around that it was a little bit of an adjustment. But if you scroll back, and it's so funny because I had all these conversations with industry people at the time, because I started implementing video like as soon as it was available online, but not in real format. It was just like Instagram allowed you to post video. And I was like, video is the way to go. It's so much more engaging, so much more fun.
Wow,
and then
early adopter, Mel.
It became like, well, thank you. Yeah. But I also had a background, like my career full-time was in tech. So I think it gave me a little bit more insight into like where to pivot and how to pivot quickly. And I think that's kind of the trick to this industry.
Interesting.
Is you got to embrace change and you got to evolve quickly. And I wouldn't say I'm good at this all the time either. It takes a lot of time and effort and, you know, hesitation, but
totally,
those are the people I think that get to stay.
Yeah, I agree. And also it's funny because I've chatted about my experience with this, but I'm curious about yours, is that when the pandemic hit, it felt like TikTok kind of came out of nowhere and it was really
Lol Musically.
Yeah. And yeah, truly musically. But it was a bit confronting for someone that had been in the industry for so long, because I was like, oh shit, you know, I've always been good for this one thing. I was always just known for like maybe taking a pretty picture or being able to capture something on Instagram. Yeah. So there was a little bit of fear attached to going to this whole new platform and being like, am I going to be able to show up in a new way on a new platform to actually draw in an audience? Because it's one thing to post a video, it's another to build a whole new audience. So, I mean, that was challenging for me. And I was really like, hell yeah, by the time the end of 2021 ended and I actually had a TikTok following. But did you have a similar feeling where you're like, okay, time to pivot once more and get on this new platform that has all these new things?
Oh, 100%. And it's always that like leap of faith, and that I like to see like embraced ignorance.
Yeah.
Like, I just like, you have to go into it without thinking.
It's so true.
Just post to post is what I would say at the beginning of your journey, because you are the thing that's holding yourself back.
So true.
And yeah, your content at first is going to be so freaking cringe, and you're going to look back and be like, I really want to delete this.
Yeah.
But that's how you get started. And the people that don't start at all are the people who get stopped at that point. So,
well, thanks for sharing that. And I completely agree. So now, what is your relationship with the platforms now? Because again, where I was 10 years ago is not where I am now. And I very much value my offline time. How do you kind of balance, you know, the Mel online and the Mel offline? And like, what does that look like now with the platforms?
I think we've talked about this so much, because being in this for so long, it isn't sustainable to just live online, and it really is all consuming, because you're working at your computer all day, then maybe you're filming, and then you're going to events or you're going to work things, and that's your whole day. And then on the weekends, you rinse and repeat the same thing. You still create content, you still edit. The only difference is you have no events and no emails. And so because you're talking about your life, you literally are living online, and it's I think it's a boundary that everybody kind of has to draw for themselves. So for me, I think where I am right now, and I think it's different depending on everybody's life. Like if you have kids, if you have a full-time job, if you are struggling with something, if you're struggling with health, like this is all going to change your boundaries. But for me, I like to say that I have a strict like 6 p.m. cutoff, unless I have an event coming up. And so I like to stay off the apps from an engaging perspective or engagement perspective, like not commenting, DMing, things like that. And I'll do the rest during the day. And so unless I'm posting during an off hour time after 6 p.m., I'm offline. And it's hard for those, I think, who aren't in the industry to kind of understand it, because you might be hanging out with a friend that, you know, doesn't do this full time, and, you know, you're hanging out, you're having wine or whatever, you're having a drink at home, and everybody's scrolling and you're just off your phone, and it feels odd. And you kind of have to hold yourself accountable to giving yourself that offline time, because if not, you're literally on your phone all day, every day. I saw this quote recently, and I don't know who said it, but it rang so true. It said, if you look at your phone the first thing in the morning, and any time of the day, but you're essentially letting millions of people into your mind, into your most sacred place. So, you know, a sacred time for you might be the morning when you wake up and you're fresh and your brain is fresh, and you're letting a million people enter your mind and tell you about this influx of information that your mind just really isn't prepared to handle. And so I always say social media is a tool, or the internet, but social media is a tool, and it's about how you use it. And you can use it for harm, you can use it for good. And so you really do have to draw those online, offline boundaries to safeguard that philosophy.
And safeguard your peace. And it's interesting that you say that, because it's almost like our jobs are at odds with that constantly, right? It's like we're also fighting for the attention at the same time that we're looking to release ourselves from the constant influx of information and trends and content and all of those things. So it's almost like this, and again, maybe some non-creators wouldn't understand this, but I think creators really get it, which is like this major balance of like feeling like you're enjoying your real life out, like we always say, like your best life is actually your offline life, but then also creating these exciting moments for audience and audience retention and audience engagement and all these things. So it's weird, because there is such a conflict of like what we're after constantly.
I mean, I think it's the ups and downs of just like the job that we do,
of course,
you know, and every job has those ups and downs. This is just one that it's so new. So nobody's actually mapped it out yet in terms of like what to do, what not to do, what guidelines there are to like protect your mental health and all this. It's kind of like up to you to decide and create those regulations for yourself.
So true. Yeah, exactly. Like a lawyer at the end of the day would just be like, well, I'm off now.
You're not paying me. I'm done. Like,
these aren't billable hours. You're fucked.
Exactly. Like I wish I had like that level of billable
100%. But talking about our job, and it is an iconic job, can you share maybe one or two experiences, because you've had so many, that might just ring as like truly fabulous, wonderful influencer experiences?
Oh, wow. A lot. I feel like a lot of them are going to be travel related, because I think anytime that you can be displaced from your home and get to do something that's so out of the norm for you, and you get to see so many cool things, that's where you really take a step back and you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is reality.
100%.
I would say, okay, notable trips. One of my very first press trips was with a automotive company, but they basically flew us to the top of a glacier in Whistler. I kid you not.
Iconic.
We had to literally fall out of the helicopter on top of this glacier, and then the helicopter left us. Like, imagine being in deafening silence by yourselves for like literally 2 hours. And they were like, oh, also if weather conditions like get crazy, we won't be able to pick you up, there's an overnight bag inside the glacier cave. And just like, that was such an epic adventure.
Press trip number one, really throwing you to the wolves. They're like, oh, welcome to this life.
I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is like a movie type of thing. I couldn't believe that this was happening.
I love that.
Outside of that, I think too, like, honestly, the trips that have other people that are really fun are my favorite. Like the trips that you and I have gone on.
I was going to say, so you want to talk about our Dominican Republic adventures?
I feel like my work wifey trips have been a supremo. But honestly,
it actually is true. It's who you're with that makes it so memorable.
Like, you could be doing whatever, but if it's a good group of people with good energy and then you're all vibing and having a good time, it doesn't even really matter what you're doing or where you are. But like our Dominican Republic one, so epic, so fun.
That never felt like work. I can be very clear on that one.
It did not feel like work for 1 second. Like, we had monkeys on us, and like
that was a really, really fun trip.
ATVing.
Yeah. And went golfing on like a very prestige course.
Yes, with a caddy.
Yeah.
Our caddy man, we love him.
And I played really bad and Mel played really well. So we'll just leave it there.
And I sandbagged myself. I sandbagged, though, in your defense. And I actually just recently came back from Istanbul.
I saw that press trip. So tell me about that. What was the flight like? That trip looked insane. Flying business class, is our favorite thing.
Hashtag business.
Hashtag
baby.
business baby. Hashtag this is a write-off. Hashtag needs to be first class.
Hashtag after 4 hours business class only. No, I don't mean to make it sound like divas, but honestly, it was such a great experience. It's always really nice when you get to work with brands that get that you are trying to showcase like a fully well-rounded experience. And for them, they wanted to really showcase like the luxury experience of going to Istanbul. And so it was with Turkish Airlines. It was actually a huge trip. There was like 60 people.
Oh, that's massive.
From all over the world, which is crazy. So you got to meet a lot of people from all different markets, which was also in itself very cool, because you got to like suss out what the other markets kind of looked like in comparison to Canada's.
Are we a small market? What's it giving? Like
I think it's giving...
Like, do we stand out?
We are kind of looped into the US.
Yeah.
But also, I think we're really lucky to be able to be in like a market of our own.
I agree.
Where you're kind of like a big fish in a small pond.
I see that.
And like Canadians are kind of niche when you think about it from a North American perspective. Like, even when I'm following other creators, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're Canadian. That means you're going to have relatable content to me as a Canadian and not as an American.
Well, that's the thing. I know we get looped in with the US, but the reality is like we're telling stories that are almost
different.
Yeah, almost always Canadian angled. Like, I can't go and do a Target haul. I don't even have access to that. Like, I'll go into a Shoppers Drug Mart haul, whatever it is. It's like, you're just doing things that are different. And also our weather, like we're talking about different boots and coats and fashion and like all of it.
But there's just, there is definitely a really interesting culture when it's such a big group and you like are learning so much about like the way different people interact. Because essentially when you're on a press trip, we've talked about this so many times, when you're on a press trip with people, you go from strangers to basically roommates.
Guys, it's summer camp. Like, I don't even know how to explain that to people that have never been on a press trip. It feels like you're at summer camp for like 2 weeks. Like you're just like locked in with all these people and you're immediately best friends because you're just on top of each other and like doing everything together. It is an odd experience.
And the only time you're away from each other is when you're literally sleeping. Like, think about this.
Your face. You're like,
think about
Why
this.
are we alone? Yeah,
Because
yeah.
no, but I think as I've gotten older, I've realized that like there are people that you connect with and that have the same values as you.
Yeah.
And there are other people who don't. And there's no good or bad to that. It's just that like you need to safeguard your energy.
That's true. It's become more difficult as I've gotten older to go on press trips and like fully embrace it the way I used to. I think when I was younger, it's a lot easier to feel like you can just be everybody's best friend and like show up in that way. But it takes so much energy, and you and I are very extroverted people. And if we're the one trying to like clown around and entertain the crowd, like at a certain point, it's like, okay, I'm not your jester. Like I need to go in my corner and like just be friends with the people that I'm friends with.
Or like it's one thing to be kind and it's another thing to be like best friends with. But the thing is like you mentioned, on these press trips, you're kind of forced to become best friends with strangers who 100%. You literally met like 12 hours ago.
Yeah.
So, but it's always an interesting experience. And what's nice is about it, and what I felt very lucky in Istanbul for was the group I was placed in were actually like wonderful people.
Amazing.
Really great energy.
Love that.
Really diverse background. So it gave me the opportunity to learn a lot. So, but
that's
it's not
really
always
exciting.
That way.
See, this is us talking about the positives. Now it's time to go into the negatives. So what has been like a really like hard lesson that you've learned about the industry? Now you can talk about something that was early on in the industry or later on or whatever, but if there's just like a lesson you've learned.
You can't please everyone and you can't be liked by everyone. And I think as an extrovert, like you're naturally a people pleaser. You love to give people energy and you love to receive that energy because that is how you fuel yourself. But that's just not possible. And it's not sustainable even as an extrovert in this industry because you're always on.
Totally.
You're either on camera or you're on in person or you're on a press trip, but you're always on. Yeah. So it's just not sustainable.
And we do not have off switches, unfortunately.
You and I are on this level at all times. And when we're
really
together,
true. It's like
when we're together, it's like, here's Tori, and then I'm here, and then you're here, and we just like are so. But I love that about you because honestly, I feel like there's not a lot of people who are like that, and I've become more sensitive to the fact that you have to like be cognizant of other people's energy types.
I know, and that's true too. But then I've always go back to my original statement, which is don't dull my sparkle. So I
love that,
and I stopped feeling bad about like kind of because I felt that in the industry, like people would give me a side eye if I was like the one chatting with the client at the event or whatever it is. But it's like, you know what, at a certain point, like everybody is given the same, at that point, doorway to entry. True. So it's like what you do at that time and space is up to you. And it's like you can create, you know, either a memorable experience for people or not. So don't dull my sparkle, baby.
Period. But to answer your question, your actual question, I digress. I had this has only happened once, but like a creator just like up and just like not like me. I think it had to do with like not realizing she had followed me, and so I didn't follow her back or something like this.
Interesting.
Like way back when, I'm talking like 8 years ago. But to this day,
like beef.
To this day, she like apparently has been telling other people that like I'm an awful person and I have been.
Oh, that's weird.
It's really bizarre. And I actually I actually approached her and was like, hey, like, can we talk? And I was like, I feel like we're adults. Like we should, and she was just like, no. Oh, it was at an event too. It's so funny. Vic, my other good friend, was with me, and she's like, yeah, you need to like just like exit her from your life or from your brain. Wow. I honestly haven't thought about her until this moment.
No, of course.
Because that's honestly the only negative experience I can kind of recall. But I think it goes to like show you that you can try your best. You really can be the type of person with the values that you have. And my values are that like nothing is that serious. And if I'm giving you a bad feeling, like I want to clear it up and I want to either apologize if there's something that I did that like upset you, or maybe just clarify because likely it was a misconception or miscommunication or whatever. And also this industry is fickle, so people are just jealous and play a certain game. You know what I'm saying? Like, who knows? But that actually reminded me of a story, which I should tell because I think it's important for young creators to hear. But it reminded me of a similar experience I had with a creator who was much older than me. She was like at least 15 years older than me when this happened. I was like fresh in school, just getting started in the industry. And that same agency that I was chatting about that represented me at the time, I had just signed with them. And I was like really excited about that. And that felt like a new chapter for me. And like I was going to be supported in a new way. Yeah. And I knew that she was also on the roster. So I ended up at a press dinner and we were sitting beside each other and we were just having a very candid conversation. And again, I have learned my lesson in this. And so take it with a grain of salt. But I was just being candid about my experience with the agency and what that was going to look like. Like I was like, oh, I can't remember exactly what I said, but like, let's say I talked about commission rates. Like I was like telling her what % of commission they were going to take.
did this girl not take that back to the team and basically just like throw me under the bus to try to renegotiate her own contract? Because she realized I had a better deal than her, which like not my fault, but also my fault for, I guess, sharing it. But again, like I would share that with anyone that really asked. I did it in good faith, thinking that it would just be an industry comment or an industry moment. She took advantage of the situation. I was young, and I got a huge rap on the wrist for that, because it was just like, hey, you can't be like telling people out of turn, like, which is totally fair. Like, let me be clear, totally fair. But when I think about creators like that, I'm like, oof, like that's bad karma. Like if someone told me in good faith a situation about a brand or a deal or whatever, it's like, yes, like I'm not saying you can't be strategic, but like don't throw someone else's name under the bus just so like you can level up. And I just think that was like I'm glad I learned that lesson early on, because like now I'm much closer to my chest about what I would tell people.
Yeah, and who.
And who. Yeah. But yeah, people really do be kind of horrible.
People be people, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the reality, is that you're just not gonna like everybody, and not everybody's gonna like you. And that's a hard pill to swallow for somebody who like loves to connect with people, and people who are extroverts and like love to connect with all people, and typically have not a difficult time connecting with all people, right? True. But I remember that story. Yeah. Well, I remember you being,
do you remember who it was?
20. Of course I remember who it was.
Yeah. But I totally have a flag on her.
But I feel like I remember like you being in the washroom with me at an event, and you were like, Mel, like I'm just like
devastated.
So you were so devastated. And honestly, like when this happened with this other creator at this event too, like I was with a friend and I was like, I feel so shitty. Like I feel like I tried so hard to like mend things and figure out what's wrong. And I don't understand what, and it's just one of those things where it's blurry again, because our lives are our product, and our lives are our business. And so although people deal with this like in friendships and friendships breaking up all the time, it's weird when it's also tied into your work, or when people have like an issue with you or your content, like people
we don't have HR.
Right.
In this industry.
And there's nothing safeguarding you, because it's not like you're talking about a product like that you're selling. Your product is you as a person. So everything is going to feel like a personal attack.
For sure. And when someone attacks your brand, you feel like, well, that's putting me at risk because you're misunderstanding me or you're misunderstanding my intent. And then it just feels really scary, because you're like, yeah, my livelihood is attached to this. And like,
and my person.
You
know, like it's true. I think for me, like as a business person, if you don't like my product, cool, move along. But when my product is me, it just feels like a personal attack. Then I can't really detach me from me, you know? And that's just definitely something that I've personally struggled with a lot.
And then how do you translate that to the trolls online? Because it's one thing when we have it in the industry, and that is true. It's actually hard to be faced with that in real life, because that is confronting. And for someone to just be like rude at events to you, or like if you feel like someone is bullying you at events, like that's like really horrible. But it's much easier for people to hide online and troll online. How do you deal with that? Is it easier? Is it harder?
I say block and bless.
I love that.
Block and bless, baby. No, really, because like it's taken me a while, and it wasn't like this at the beginning, but it definitely is now, where I recognize that it's coming from two different places. Either one, like a place of just like deep darkness, and I really do feel bad for you when comments are nonsensical.
Totally.
But oftentimes, like I have a wonderful community, and I think that anytime there's been something negative, it maybe is just like we don't see eye to eye on something, and we're not going to see eye to eye like with hundreds of thousands of people, you know? And so I try to recognize that I try to think about where this is coming from and how it might have triggered them. And again, like it just depends on how respectful they are about the comment, and whether they're a troll or they're just like placing in a comment that's negative. And knowing the difference, I think, as a creator is really important.
I agree.
But when it's the troll, block and bless, like goodbye. You're not even, I don't even read the messages half the time. If I read the first sentence and it's trolly, I don't read it.
Totally.
But if it's something negative, but maybe it's just misunderstood, I give them the opportunity to like have their space to say it, because really I am creating a space and a channel. It is my space and channel, but it's an open space and channel to discuss something, and it just depends on how respectful you are about it. And I've definitely had my fair share of that this year. So It's been a journey.
Yeah. And I guess the other piece of that too is the feedback loop, which you and I have talked about, which is we're okay if people give us criticism, as long as, to your point, it's given respectfully. Yeah. Like if I've supported a brand, but I don't know a deeper story about a brand and someone gives me feedback or whatever the example might be, I think that's also important for creators to recognize when their audience is actually maybe not looking out for you is the wrong word, but like coming at it with respect and just saying like, hey, you know, I actually really like to follow you, but like this kind of rubbed me the wrong way and here's why. Yeah. Like I'm fine to receive DMs like that, but I agree. Like the random, like, you're a spaz bug because you're 5'1".
Or you're ugly.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool.
I'm like, thanks. Okay.
Thank you.
Be more original, please. I love that. Okay, so back to the positive. I'm not trying to flip flop between positive and negative, but maybe this is the theme for today.
Of our careers.
It very much is. Do you have a favorite brand campaign that you've worked on? You've worked on so many brand campaigns. Can you share an example of a really exciting, fun one?
Oh my gosh. There's a lot in the past. I'm gonna there's probably ones that have been super, super exciting that I'm not mentioning now. I had a recent long-term partnership with Cadillac, which has been really fun.
I saw that, the red.
Yeah, just because I feel like it was really representative of where I am. In
very
this part
sexy
of my
and
life
fun.
Right
yeah,
now.
I agree.
A little salsa moment because of the red. I Latin dance. This is why I had to throw this in there. But anyhow, I think that for me, it's any brand that gives you the creative flexibility to express yourself in a way and incorporate their brand in a way that just feels authentic to you is great. But yeah, Cadillac was definitely a great one this year. I love that.
Is there a category that you like to shoot most? Do you love shooting automotive? I know you love fashion, beauty. Is there a category that you're most drawn to when it comes to just organically creating content of a day?
As a lifestyle creator, it's kind of hard because I always wear clothes. I always put on makeup or skincare. I think fashion would probably be the easiest, but it's not necessarily what I like to share about. I'm not throwing shopping links out all the time, so I wouldn't even say I'm a fashion creator. For me, I think it's just whatever is really big for me at that time in my life. It's really hard to say because the year that I bought my house, and I bought a Centurion house that was 100 years old and decided to renovate it. It was this whole big ordeal. That year, I was a home reno creator, and all I wanted to talk about was Home Depot and Lowe's and Rona,
Totally.
So it really depends on the time in my life. Right now, I am in a rebirthing stage. So for me, a lot of it's fashion and beauty and trying new things and new activities and
absolutely
fitness, dance. So there's just, I think for me, what I like to say is I am really a lifestyle creator because the way I see it is I'm living my life online with my audience. And I want us to grow together and grow up together. And that was always the beginning of how I started my blog. If we circle back to full circle moment, 14 years old and little Mel trying to code her website and her forum, it was just to meet friends. And so when I say in my bio that my whole channel is about meeting friends and having fun, that's what it's about. Whether it's also teaching you how I take my photos or what I'm wearing or what I'm doing with my house or whatever the case is, it's really just us living life together as friends. So
I love that your mission hasn't changed. I think that's also clear in who you are in your content because it's it's I mean, this is the buzzword of the week, the year, month, whatever. But to have the authenticity of knowing at 14 what the mission was and then to be able to still continue to fulfill that must also feel really rewarding for you because it's you actually haven't lost yourself in this industry can be very all consuming and it can be, there's some toxicity to it. And we've said, there's the ups and the downs, but to feel you can have a through line and actually then come out the other side and be oh yeah, my mission still stands and this is very successful.
People are niche down, niche down, niche down.
Yo, don't niche down. That is,
as a lifestyle creator, niche. When you have a niche, yes, you will grow really quickly. That is undoubtable. As a tech person, algorithmically, it's going to grow really fast. So if that's your intention, cool. But for me, that was never my intention. So if I was going to switch my intention to I want to grow exponentially, then yeah, maybe I would niche down. But I think the longevity of this is about just, and it sounds so cheesy because everybody says it, but do it because you love it. Like, you have to love it to do it for a long time.
You do.
Whether or not it's your full-time career. So whether if your intention is like, I want to make 6 figures doing this in 2 years, you're going to have a very different path than what like I would have. But for me, like, I'm ready to sacrifice this as my full-time job if I had to, so that I can still do it because I love it. Like, I want to be 85 and dancing on a video. Maybe it's holographic at that time. At that point, who knows?
I'd love to see that. Cut to
Mel hologram at 85 with her cane.
God, that's pretty funny. I love that.
But yeah, so I thought about this a lot recently, because we go through so many different rebrands when you're doing this for, near a decade.
Yeah.
You just do, like, you're a home creator, and then you're a travel creator, and then like you're like so many different
100%.
rebrands of you as a person, because you are always evolving. So when you think about it that way, you really do have to ask yourself, like, are you going to do this forever because you love it, or are you just doing it for the dollar? There's 2 different intentions.
2 very different intentions. And it's also funny because you can look at content even from a year ago and be like, whoa, my creative eye has already changed so much.
Yeah.
Being in a creative field allows you the evolution of change. And that's so exciting. It's like, I don't know. I mean, my partner, Adam, like, he's super creative as well. And it's like, if I look at a video that he shot last year versus one he shot last week, it's even just wild how you can change within a few months. Like, just your perspective, whether it's from a different perspective, a different emotional place, whatever it might be, your videos could get better. Sometimes they get worse. I've had, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes I look back and I'm like, yo, that was fire. Like, what happened to that type of content? Yeah. So, like, I don't know. It's evolution, right? It's just like you're vibing with the industry, which I love. So you shared a campaign that you loved. Do you have a campaign that you regret or like a bad experience?
That one's a hard press like answer. I don't think I think I have any regrets. Like, everything, I feel like it sounds so fluffy, but I've just learned from it.
I know what you mean.
Like, I've had maybe like some campaigns that like just weren't executed very well.
Yeah.
Or like that I've had to like chase money for like a year.
Jack and I talked about that together.
El Clasico. But other than that, like, it's just all a learning curve. I don't think... Like, I don't mean to like pat myself on the back, but I just feel like anytime I've accepted a partnership, it's because like
it made sense.
It made sense. And if it didn't make sense, I would have said no to it already.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, there are things that like just didn't go as planned. This happens, I feel like,
which is very normal in the industry.
Yeah. But
in terms of actual like brands you stood behind, you've been like happy and excited by all of them. I feel the same. Like, I don't have one where I'm like, wow, how did I say yes to that brand? Like, I've never had that.
And I don't mean to say that like, I don't want to throw any brands under the bus. No, like, it's literally like I'm trying to really rack my brain.
You also know pretty quickly when you see an email if there's alignment or not. Like, everybody knows that those come into your inbox and you're just like, oh, that's a no for me, dog. And you just immediately it's a no. So then you never get deep enough where it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
So the ones that have ever gone on to become like full on campaigns, like, I've always been happy to put my name on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and if not, then like, it probably would have been a mark.
A no from the beginning.
Yeah, a no from the beginning. Yeah.
I like that. You've had a lot of growth in the last couple of years on Instagram. Like, your reels have just absolutely popped off. Like, as someone that's been in the industry for so long, and then you've had this like very like explosion over the last couple of years, which is also exciting because it's like, you're not the Gen Z that goes online one day and then has 1 million followers the next. It's like, you've literally had to go through every single journey of the platform and learn it. And then you kind of found your perfect strategy. So what do you think as an influencer makes you stand out versus like other creators?
That's a good question. Can you tell me? No, I'm just joking. Like,
in the comments, tell us what you love about Mel.
Tell me what you love about me. No, listen, the growth came from niching. If I'm going to be really honest, like, I was posting a lot during COVID about like posing tips and photo tips. And I think people at the time didn't really have a lot to do. So there wasn't really a lot of activities. And, I've always had this like love for photography and videography and like being in front of the camera. So it just felt like a natural skill set to kind of share back with my audience. And that's kind of what grew me a lot. Me and my then partner as well were very big on like doing things together. And he was also a creator. And I think that was a really inspirational story and love story to watch unfold. And so I think these things attribute to the success in the last 3 years. And when we found that these things were successful, we really leaned into them. That all to say, like it was a learning curve for sure that you like can grow exponentially when you niche into something.
Interesting.
And that was the formula for me. But now in my current evolution, it's like, how do I balance that with just like also who I am? Because I think at the time of growth, I was really like every other day was either like a posing video or like a couple advice video or something like that. And although that was giving me a lot of growth, which got me a lot of eyeballs, I didn't feel like I was really growing a relationship with my audience.
Community.
And that's really the heartbeat of my channel and why I do this. And so I think this year was kind of circling back to that. And if I'm being really honest with you, like that means losing audiences because followers, like some people are just there for the value, and the value was that they were getting these like tips and tricks and seeing like the lovey-dovey couple stuff, and now they're not getting it, so they need to like leave, and that's really okay. But I think it's about balancing that. And so that's kind of the recipe to my growth.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It was the last 3 years. COVID really was like helpful for me.
Yeah. I know the pandemic did a lot for people in social because we had so much time to create. Huge. Well, we weren't traveling. So
and like everybody wasn't spending money like on traditional media. So they were spending it digitally. And so
those were the good years, the golden years of digital.
All,
that year and like 2018.
I
I don't know what was on in like 2017, 2018, but there was some real bag back like in that journey. I don't know.
Yeah, it's different now.
It is different.
It's different.
That's probably important for young people to know too. Brands are putting, I'd say, a little bit less money into digital, but in a different, maybe it's just shifting. I think we're in the middle of a shift. So
we're in the middle of a shift, and also like marketing dollars there's a big influence on marketing dollars. It's also the economy, it's also inflation, like all these things trickle all the way down to marketing. So, and then we are a line item within marketing.
Yeah. A small little line item in Canada.
And also there's just like a lot more creators, which is a good thing.
It is.
People are always like, oh, it's too saturated to get in. It's too saturated. Well, first of all, nobody's going to have your voice.
Yeah.
So if you think you have something to say and you really want to say it, you need to say it.
Absolutely.
So that's one. And then two, like it is a good thing that we are having more people in it. Does that mean you're going to get less brand partnerships? Maybe. But the right brands are going to find you and connect with you. And more importantly than anything is you need to do this for community. And that's what I tell myself all the time. There was like a month this year, I literally, Tori, I kid you not, did not book a single job.
You're like hashtag unemployed.
I was like, I'm an unemployed person. I cannot afford my mortgage.
I'm an unemployed person. Yeah.
I am going to apply. But like,
no, I think this is like so important for young creators to know because it's like, even if you've been in the industry for 10 years, like there are dry spells, like that is the life of self-employment. There's high months, there's low months. Like everybody that is in this industry gets that. Like I think what holiday was 3 years ago is not what holiday is this year. Like brands are not activating the same way that they want. Where are my holiday parties? Like I'm not trying to be rude, but like I used to love to just like absolutely chug champagne for the whole month of December on the brand's bills. I mean that kindly. I really loved those invites, but I feel like people aren't doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Where are my holiday
And there's
parties?
also like a lot less holiday like partnerships, I think.
Well, that's kind of what I was alluding to, but also where are my parties?
You're like, where's my champagne? I need it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's like, it's all good. It's one of those things that you just have to find like what your core is.
It's true.
Stick to that. And that's going to hold you through like all these ups and downs of the space. Like,
do you also feel like we've had the benefit, and again, like this is a bit of an aside, but the benefit of living through, like, not to be crazy, but like kind of the golden age of influencer of what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago when we were just getting started, because it was, I mean, it's still the Wild West, but it was like truly the Wild West. And I remember I used to say to Jacqueline, like, if this all goes away tomorrow, it'll be okay because we had so much fun.
Yeah, it's true.
So like sometimes I just go back to that. I'm like, even if this job, like this job will have evolutions, and I know it will, and like one day this might be a blimp and we won't be on Instagram anymore. Maybe it's something completely different, but I'm confident we will still be storytellers in another way.
Yeah.
We'll find our way in another way. But I think that's just, it has changed, and that's okay.
I love that. Actually, you're so right. Like I look back on my time and I think about that a lot. Like this was the best time of my life. And that's like, it hits close to home for me because, as you know, and some audiences might know, it's like I went through like a really big public breakup this year.
Yeah.
And for me, like a really big part of healing from that was recognizing like, just because it's no longer doesn't mean it wasn't so great and so beautiful when it was happening. And I think that's like just a really great like learning for life, you know?
Yeah,
like
it's so true.
And I don't know.
Yeah, you can like see the chapter, you know what I mean? And just be like, okay, like it exists in that beautiful form. And like that was fantastic for the time that it was.
Yeah.
Let's chat about that a little bit. You know, you did have this bravery in you this year. I don't know where you got that from to publicly kind of explain your breakup, and like how was that for you offline? Like how have you been dealing with that? And are you feeling now all these months later that you're in a better place?
Yeah, it was hard. I think I got really lucky. Like my partner and I, he's just such a wonderful person. And we were able to really like uncouple, I suppose, in a way that was like sacred to us. And I think it really reminded you that like you do keep things sacred to you in this world. Like there are things that obviously like we felt like we owed our audience an explanation because like they were a part of our lives. And like I said, they were like, I see my every follower like a friend. So we owed them some level of explanation, but there were some things we wanted to keep sacred to ourselves. And I think I don't wish a public breakup on anyone. It's really like a lot to handle when you're actually going through it yourself. But once you get to the woods, it's like, it's all like for the best and good vibes. But I
also feel like your community came for you. Like there was so much love, like people really for both of you. Do you know what I mean? Which I remember reading the comments on your original post and just being like, wow, like that's amazing. Like people really rode for you guys and just wanted the best for both of you. And that's so positive, you know?
Yeah. We did definitely lean into our like couple moments a lot. And so it was really nice to see people have positive things to say, but also there were like some, like, I will never, like, I'm going to tell this story because truly it was like the most absurd thing ever. And just really was what told me like, I need to like go offline for a bit. So a follower sent me a video of themselves crying, telling me like they no longer believe in love anymore, that I should feel so guilty for like having like done this to my community, and that like if there was no hope for us, there'd be no hope for anyone else. And I was just I felt like I was sucker punched so much because like, not only was I going through this, but then I shouldered like the guilt of my community. And it's because like, you know, my partner and I did share a lot of like the good things in our relationship because we're just the type of people that I think like share good moments and not necessarily low ones. But we always used to disclaim that like there are low moments too. It's just like in those moments we don't really feel like turning on the camera. And that's just us. That's just us. Like every creator is different, but that's just us. But yeah, it was in that moment I was like, oh my goodness, I really need to like protect myself and protect my peace.
That's carrying the weight for people. It's just not fair.
Yeah. So, but anyhow, I think it goes to the evolution we were talking about.
Absolutely.
Like that, I feel like is the theme of our like chat. Like evolution is just so important in this.
Being able
industry.
to adjust, being like resilience is so important. Being able to be in the face of the challenge, see the challenge, and then be like, okay, like it's okay. I'm going to survive and like move to the next chapter, which you've done beautifully.
And I think it was hard for like even brands. Like I think brands didn't even know how to like. They're like,
oh, our couple content is
what happened to like? Is she still working? Like is she not? And like even though we did have separate accounts, like we were in each other's content all the time. We traveled together all the time.
His and her.
His and her moments like for the last like 13 years of our life and really my entire career as a creator. So
crazy.
It was definitely a learning curve to also learn how to do this on my own.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, you've had this and I've had this, which is friends in the industry. And that's been interesting too. Like I've lost friends in the industry where it's like you've been in content together and then maybe you're like not friends anymore. True. And then like that's interesting too. And it's not the same as a breakup, but it is a little bit the same because brands don't really know like, oh, are they allowed to be at the same event together? Like, are they friendly anymore? Like,
because your life is your product.
I know. Back to the original statement, your life is your product. It can get very like touchy, you know?
And like sensitive. And it's like, do you prioritize your business, your personal life?
Right.
Or like, are they at odds? It's
at
really
odds with one another. Well, I appreciate your vulnerability. And I know that that's not easy to chat about. So I'm sure people are happy to hear that you're happy because that's what's most important. So I love that. We chatted a little bit about virality. You've been popping off. So do you believe that we can force virality or is it always an accident?
No, you definitely can strategize for it.
Yeah,
you definitely can. And like, there's a couple of different things like from a tech perspective that you can definitely do to do that. Like you can track, you can, look at trending reels that are existing right now. What are they doing? What are you being served? There are some feedback data that, the platforms will give you to kind of look into it. It takes a lot of work and it's not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed, but there is a strategy that you can go about it. And like the reality, and we talked about it, is the platforms they do prefer niches. So if you have a niche and it goes viral because it's very relatable and it's very funny, it's very shareable or whatever, you stick with it and you keep creating that content. But for me personally, I think it was a balance between like my viral content, and I actually had a category in my content strategy. It was like viral content. Yeah. This is the stuff that like I knew was probably going to perform, the bread and butter to get me new eyeballs, meaning it's going to attract new audiences, and maybe like sustain the ones that came here for that same niche. But is this really what I want to talk about? Is this really the message I want to share with the world? Like, is that it? And so that's where the other content pillars come in. But yes,
do you also find sometimes viral content is the most, this is going to sound bad, but like empty?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
It's empty.
I find the viral my content that goes always the most viral is always the one that is like furthest away from me. I would say it's like the most like empty,
fluffy is what I like to say. They're just
that's a better word. Fluff, like, but that makes sense because to appeal to masses, it kind of needs to be maybe more fluffy. But I agree, to build that community, you need to have those more one-on-one content pieces and be able to like grow.
The way that I see it is like, I brought you here, I got you in the door from this video, but whether you decide to stick with me and like live life with me is the other content. And so that's how I like to see it. But you always have to have that like revolving door, because people walk in and walk out of your home, right? Like your home being your channel, like, and that's really okay. So if you don't have intake and you just have outtake,
it's not gonna work.
You're going down.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have any influencers that you look up to, whether Canadian, American?
You.
Oh, that's what Jacqueline said too. This is why I have my friends on the show. I bring my friends on so they can be nice to me.
I haven't watched you and Jack's episode yet. But no, honestly, I think like it's so inspiring that like you, first of all, start doing this so young as well, like in the golden era. And two, like the way you navigate it with confidence is, I think, like really inspiring to me. Like if I'm a consumer, like I look to the people online and creators who I think are either one, really artistic and I like their artistic vision, whatever that is, whether it's like funny, raw, relatable content, or whether their artistic vision is like this beautifully curated life. But for you, I think it's your confidence. Your confidence is so contagious. And I feel so much more confident when I'm around you, which I think is what people get when they're around you.
Oh, so I appreciate that. That's really nice. Yeah, I don't know what my special sauce is online, so that's kind to hear.
Yeah, I think it's that.
Bringing confidence to those out there. I love that.
Because you do your thing. You do your thing and you do it unapologetically. And I think that's also just what people need.
It's true. Yeah. There is a lot of fear around this industry. And I do sense that in young people. It's like they're fearful of creating content, or they're fearful of putting themselves out there. Why I have all these tongue ties. But I do sense that. And if you can grow confidence in young people early, which is what I think I had, which was like exposure therapy and just like being like, oh, I'm just going to throw myself into the woods and like see how it goes. And
I mean, you were kind of like a famous child actor.
Yeah.
No big deal.
No, I know. But like, I say that because again, that experience, I was thrown to the wolves. Like I didn't really know.
You kind of figured it out.
Yeah. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And I think it all goes back to what you were saying, which is the original mission, which for me was, showmanship. Like I think if I go back to like what I really was at 2 years old, it was like putting on a show. Even back then I would say, mommy, look at me, mommy, look at me. And I'd sing and dance in the mirror. And it's like, have I really changed?
No, not at all. Now you have a podcast show.
Yeah. Now I just have a different version of the mommy, look at me. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. I don't think you really changed that much.
This could be the second name brand of your.
Yeah. Mommy, look at me.
Mommy, look at me.
Like I was a little kid just running around being a little shit, but yeah, same thing, different day.
Yeah.
Okay. We're coming to the end because you've been very gracious with your time today. Do you have any big influencer failures that have taught you something about yourself?
Yeah. I think we kind of touched on it, but it's two things, like don't lose yourself in this space. It's really easy to, like we said, you are your product. And so when you are building a business, you compare your product to other products on the market. like competitive analysis is just like business 101. But in doing so, you have to remember your product is you, and you need to like be able to protect also you.
So true.
And so that was a really big one that I learned over the years, because like I had many moments in a corner crying because I like, you know, it was like my business is failing, I'm a piece of shit, like all in one. And it's just such a dark place to be in. And you got to make sure you remember that and not compare yourself like in a way that's really damaging to you.
I agree.
And two, and like I will always say this, and everybody says this, but like do it because you love it. Don't do it for the dollar sign. And if you're doing it for the dollar sign, then
go to law school.
Actually, don't go to law school.
No,
that
I'm
was
kidding.
originally my plan.
Me too.
Hilariously.
We could have an entertainment law firm and actually
we talked about this.
We'll go back to school. We'll get it. That'll be our next evolution.
Yeah, maybe you and I will have like an influencer.
That's what I'm saying.
Influencer law firm where we like represent like legal matters for influencers. Wow.
Yeah, the influencer version of Suits. And they could make a reality TV show out of us.
Oh my gosh.
Because they'll love it.
I love this. Like, honestly.
This is us now
manifesting. To the chalkboard, manifesting.
We're pitching, manifesting, whatever you want to call it, whoever's watching. Yeah.
But yeah, and yeah, like, you know, remember that social media is a tool and you're using it as a tool.
So true.
And it can be a very dangerous tool, but it can also be a very helpful tool. So, you know, create boundaries for yourself, and probably things you've heard from other influencers before. And it's because it's for good reason. Those are like really important things to learn how to do.
So accurate and true. And if you lose yourself in this, then you're going to have a really tough time coming back out, because that's the thing, like back to the original comment, which is if you can be okay with it all going away, and knowing that the hard skills and soft skills that you've developed along the way are just very organically going to lead into something else, I think it gives you, again, the confidence to blindly accept this industry for the Wild West that it is, because you're like, okay, if this changes tomorrow, it's just a pivot. Like, that's it. It's just a pivot. But I think the people that put all of their worth, which is kind of what you're talking about, like if you put all of your worth into this industry and then Instagram is just like gone tomorrow, then what? Like, silence. I don't know. Like, it's bad.
Who are you? What do you stand for? Yeah.
True. So I'll leave it there. Final question. What did you learn on TikTok this week, if anything?
Oh my gosh. What did I learn on TikTok this week? I learned how to boil a potato.
No way.
In a different way.
Okay, what do you do?
Yeah, like, so instead of boiling potato, you put the potato in like cellophane basically, and you throw it in the microwave.
Oh, is that healthy?
I don't know, but it works. It works, and you don't have to wait like so long for your potatoes to boil. I'm in like my cooking era, my cooking and fitness era.
You
so, like,
are
I'm really
in your
into
fitness.
that.
She's a dancer, fitness
She's a
queen.
dancer.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably what I learned on TikTok.
I'm trying to think if I learned anything specific.
And like jump rope. I don't know. I'm getting a lot of jump rope.
Wait, really? Okay, I'm on a weird For You page right now. Like I'm getting served like only Hollywood entertainment stuff. Like I don't get any. Tracks. Yeah, I don't get any like educational.
Oh.
But I just like the tea. Like they'll be like, this week, like this Netflix star is with this. But like I just like that. I'm here for the tabloids. I'm like
this tracks for you.
What were
like
those magazines back in the day? Like
Us Weekly.
No, but like Tiger Beat. Like,
what?
Do you remember these?
No, we were in a different era.
True. I think it was called Tiger Beat. But like Teen Vogue, I don't know.
In one of those tabloids?
Yeah, I kept all the ones that I was ever in because I was
Was there any like saucy ones?
No, because I was no fun. Like I never had like Hollywood boyfriends. I should have, but I didn't.
Mickey Mouse Club 2.0.
I mean, literally, I'm going to Disney next week. So yeah, maybe I am still in the Mickey Mouse Club. I don't know.
I love this. We need to do a Disney trip together.
Oh yes, that's got to be our next evolution. I'm going on a cruise.
Oh, fun. Wait, didn't you just get back from one?
That was just the preview for the ship. Now I'm going on the actual trip. I'm bringing my family. A little family Disney cruise.
This for you.
I know. Cute little family moment. I think my parents like to be in the influencer limelight. I think that's
They're made for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Mama
they are
and
kind of
Papa
like
Webster were
Hollywood
like really
parents.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. I know. We love them.
Kris Jenner mama.
Literally. Yeah. Okay, Mel, thank you so much for coming today. Thanks for your time and your energy and your positivity as always.
Really nice catching up.
Yeah,
also.
It was nice to catch up.
We never know where we are in the world.
I know. We never know where we are. Plug all your socials. Every social.
Mel Hwang.
Is that where it is everywhere?
Yeah.
Okay. Easy.
Except for YouTube maybe, but I think like you can also do the URL like Mel Hwang. It's Mel inspired on YouTube.
Very strong SEO.
Yeah, baby.
This is my parking. Beep, beep, dee, dee. Well, that's our time to go. Thank you so much for tuning into That Digital Take. It's been an amazing episode. Hope you guys got some value out of this, chatting with an industry OG, and we will see you next time. Love you, mean it. Bye.